great turnout. I'd like to introduce the next speaker, keynote speaker, Mr. Tom Chatham, who's the chairman of the board of Chatham Creative Gens. And he's got a fascinating story to tell of the last 60 years in the lab-grown industry, starting with envelopes and rubies. There's a timeline outside of his booth. He's written a book, and I would recommend that everybody who's interested in understanding what the history of this industry is, and to understand further ideas that he's going to contribute today, to go and have a talk to him and see if you can purchase a copy of his book. But I'd like to invite on stage Mr. Tom Chatham from San Francisco. So please, Tom.
Chatham Creative Gens and done. I almost didn't come to this meeting. Matter of fact, I was very close to not coming to this meeting. And through the efforts of Martin and his persuasiveness, I did come. Usually, and I've done hundreds of these presentations, stood on panels, only to have rocks thrown at me. And I've never been in an environment like this, where we're all the same family. So you're like my children almost. I'd first like to thank Green Labs for that donation of the 7.5 carat stone to Prime Minister Modi in India, and his gift of that stone to my First Lady in the United States, Joe Biden. It was a great, meaningful, important gesture, and I think it put a lot of recognition into laboratory-grown gemstones and diamonds. Now, probably a lot of you don't know who I am, or maybe you know my name, but you don't really know my history, and I'm not surprised. Diamond people don't usually talk to colored stone people. Colored stone people don't talk to pearl people. And the gold people don't talk to anyone. I want to give you an idea of what I have been doing, my family has been doing, for the last 85 years. My father was the first in the world to grow an emerald on a commercial basis back in 1935. I joined him in 1965. That's 58 years ago. And I've spent the last 30 years of my life working on diamond. And I announced that at JCK in 1996. I've come to offer you some advice on your race to the bottom. But before that, I want to give you a little history. My family spent 4 years fighting the Federal Trade Commission in court in Washington, D.C. My father did. He won that fight. And because he won that fight, you do not have to use the word synthetic today. We battled the Jewel Vigilance Committee. It was a hard fight, and he deserved what you just did for him. We battled the Jewel Vigilance Committee over nomenclature in New York. We battled Symposium. We had to sue national stone dealers to get into their trade show in the U.S., the AGTA. Single-handedly, we have won almost every battle over nomenclature. I just won't be pushed around when it comes to that. However, in 1995, we were racing to the bottom as well. I lost $30 million between 1994 and 1997 in sales. My competition, like yours, was formidable. I had Byron coming out of Australia with his emerald. He was backed by Schechter Namdar in New York. I don't know if they still are in business, but at the time they were a $300 million a year diamond company. Gills and Emerald out of Osaka, and Amari, owned by Kyocera, multi-billion-dollar company. Tyrus out of Siberia, which compared to this group is like China, cheap. Remora Ruby, Kashan Ruby, Union Carbide with their emerald, plus 3 or 4 more from Russia. Russia was a formidable competitor after the breakup. A lot of very intelligent people were left with nothing to do with all the equipment to do anything they wanted, and they did it. I know most of them. I had the old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer, and your competitors. I always try to be my competitors. But I was getting eaten alive by these friends, competitors. So I did the same thing that you're doing here. I called a meeting in Bangkok during one of the trade shows. They all showed up. And I asked them, and it really didn't have to do with pricing. We weren't trying to fix prices. Well, we do each other's pricing. I said, why are you doing this? We control the world's production, the entire world production of emerald, ruby, and sapphire. And you're killing it. You're taking my $120 a carat customer, $1 million customers at that level, down to $500,000. You're not selling them any more stones. And they laughed at me privately. They said, we got Chatham on the run. Chatham's scared. The only thing I'm scared of is losing money. I don't like to sell at a loss. The market was basically the same then as it is today. We sold all the chains. Their margins were about the same, 30%. So what a piece of jewelry that costs $600, let's say best products or service merchandise, Ellsbury, wherever. They made 30%, they made $200. What happened, my competitors went to these people and said, show me a Chatham invoice and I'll do it for 20% less. Well, I think a lot of you know these big buyers and what they did immediately. They took that new invoice and went to the other competitor and said, hey, what do you do? What do you do? And it went down, down, and down. It went all the way from $120 a carat to $7 a carat. Now, I quit way before that. I can't do that in San Francisco, in the United States, where we grew all of our product at the time. But you know what happens? The chains, the mass merchandisers, they get bored with the product. 30% of a $49 piece of jewelry is $15. They drop it. And I even asked the ex-president of Service Merchandise who went bankrupt, Charlie Setter, a good friend of mine, still is. I said, Charlie, why did you do that? I understand you take it cheaper, where you're competitive and buy a less costly product. But why do you keep the margins the same? Why don't you take the benefit and keep the extra profit? He says, Tom, that's just the way it works. We just can't do that. So what did I do? I fired Signet, I fired Walmart, I fired Costco, I fired Fred Meyer, I fired Helper, I fired Fabricant, which got me kicked out of the office, Service Merchandise, Best Products, and what happened to Chatham? We lost 50% of our volume. I had to get rid of some people. But then I started analyzing what was happening. And profits were shooting up. And I didn't realize how much it cost to service these large buyers. All the things they demand. Displays, brochures, training, buybacks, returns, you name it. It all adds up. And we aim then at all the independents in the U.S. That was the major market for us. The competition, who was only basing their marketing on price, fell by the wayside. Some of them just quit. They could easily afford to do that. They were well funded. Some of them went broke, and I bought them for pennies on the dollar. You need a marketing brand. You need a plan. And pricing is not a marketing plan. My advice, my personal advice to this group, is stop using rap as a comparison. We have never used rap. Everybody knows what natural diamond costs. You don't need to tell them. Somebody comes to me and wants to buy a 3-carat diamond, and we'll sell natural stones. And I love natural stones. If it wasn't a natural stone, I wouldn't be in business. You don't need that as a comparison, and now it's having a bad effect in the U.S. Stop the ecological claims. Stop greenwashing the product. Stop unsustainable claims. And don't get me wrong, I agree with all those claims. They're true, but in the U.S., the FTC wants you to back it up by a third party. And there are people watching everything we do. And the FTC sent out warning letters to 700 companies last month, signaling that the FTC is focusing on policing the requirements and taking enforcement action when companies are not in compliance. This could be you. And if you're not an American-based company, perhaps you think that these regulations don't apply to you. Well, after all, it's kind of a basic concept. You break a law here in this country, it doesn't apply to me in the U.S., or vice versa. But now things are changing. Many countries are concerned about activities which take place outside their borders that affect the societies within their borders. They have interest in protecting those within their borders, and it leads to a more liberal interpretation of jurisdiction, enabling them to take action to protect interests, even from external companies. A common law term is long-arm statute, and this is exactly what it sounds like: an assertion of jurisdiction over individuals and businesses outside of their country. In the United States, long-arm statutes are typically used for courts to assert jurisdiction over defendants who are not based in the U.S. or don't even live in the U.S. They could require you to answer in a U.S. court, like the FTC. In plain language, this means that if I sell Italian wines in the U.S. market, I advertise Italian wines to consumers in the U.S. market, and something is wrong with that advertising. It wouldn't be unfair for me to be called to defend that lawsuit. And they would not grant any motion to dismiss just because I didn't live there or was a resident or a citizen. So how does it pertain to the FTC Act and FTC's ability to take enforcement action against foreign-based companies? The FTC Act has a provision which extends the FTC's enforcement authority to matters involving foreign commerce. The exact quote from the FTC website reads as follows: unfair or deceptive acts or practices include such acts or practices involving foreign commerce that cause or are likely to cause injury within the U.S. Notice that the judicial philosophy contained in this statute reflects the same principles as the example I used in selling Italian wines into the U.S. If you, as a foreigner, exchange in contact which causes or is likely to cause, and that's the key phrase in the FTC power, if they think you're guilty, you have to prove you're innocent. That's the way the federal law works in the U.S. You don't go to jail, they just fine you. That's a different problem. You can also expect to be held to the same standards as a U.S.-based company. So even if your company is based outside the U.S., and the person you compensate to promote your products or services is also is likely that both you and the reseller are potential targets for the FTC. I advise you all to subscribe to the FTC newsletter. It's ftc.gov. They send out warning letters every day. So please take seriously the need to monitor posts that promote your products anywhere in the world. We're seeing many other countries take similar actions to regulate content published by sellers. So you, as you develop a compliance system, please take account of all those laws which affect your business operations, particularly where other countries have adopted a similar long-arm approach as the USA has done. Multi-country compliance is not easy, but if you want to continue to reap the benefits of pitching to multiple countries, you'll need to follow it. Can it happen? This happened to me. In 2016, I made a contract with somebody in Latvia for $10 million. Latvia is a little country about 500 miles from Moscow. My partner in Latvia tried to get a grant based on that contract. I didn't hear anything from him. The person I heard from was the FBI. The FBI came to visit me. That's scary. Now, I didn't have any problems telling them exactly what I was doing, showing them our business, and the contract was totally legitimate, and that we were trying to build a diamond growing facility in Latvia. And there wasn't any scam involved. There was no problem. But they can happen. To give you an idea of what the FTC can do, this is just the past 6 months. YouTube, $175 million fine over privacy issues. Facebook, $5 billion over privacy issues. Twitter, $150 million collecting private information. Epic Games, selling to kids. I don't know what kind of information they collected. Their fine was $520 million. Amazon, just last month, was fined $30 million over Alexa collecting data that you weren't aware of. A small Missouri doctor selling a vitamin in Missouri that he said could cure COVID-19. They fined him $500 billion. He didn't have $500 billion. He didn't have $5 billion. They know that. They investigate all your financial ability. The message here is the major pharmaceutical companies that don't fool around with advertising medicines that don't work. We'll come in and we'll get that $500 billion. Another one is a clothing company. They made all the materials out of homegrown cotton, made materials, but it was assembled overseas. And we used to grow all of our stones in San Francisco. It was made in the USA. I could sell that rough stone and call it made in the USA. As soon as I sent it to Europe or China to be cut, it was no longer made in the USA. Can't do that. It's probably not an issue for this group, but it was for me. I have to put a stamp on every bag that comes in. Additional concerns I have for this group. Sibjo, watch out. In June, the IGDA, the International Grown Gemstone Association based in the United States, I'm a founding member of it. They joined Symposium. I was totally unaware of it a week ago. I don't agree with it, and I'll fight it. And I got to ask you, if you are familiar with Symposium, why don't they ever have congresses and meetings in the United States, the biggest market in the world? Could they be antitrust issues? I believe so. In my opinion, all the Symposium wants to do is protect their own turf. I've had a lot of meetings with them. their turf as natural gemstones, while making our lives miserable in the lab-grown diamond business. The last one was this ISO definition that said we were an artificial product. I went to Symposium and I said, what do you get off on this artificial? He said, we had nothing to do with it. The ISO in Geneva did. And I really wasn't familiar with the ISO. So I go to Geneva and I talk to the head of the ISO. And I said, what do you get off on this artificial? I said, if you try and apply that to me in a court of law in the U.S., I will subpoena you. And they said, like typical Swiss, said, no, we don't want any problem, what am I problem? I said, so who wrote this rule? Well, it was somebody in Europe. Well, give me a name. I'll talk to him. Name was Harry Levy, a natural diamond cycle. I said, how can you have him write rulings for lab-grown diamonds? I know Harry. I knew him. He just passed away. And I didn't get anywhere. That was their position. So that's why I don't trust surgery. At JCK, I attended a lab-grown diamond discussion, which I won't go into great much depth. But one of the questions that was asked and presented is, when will natural and lab-grown diamonds work together? In my opinion, never. It's just not going to happen. I don't work with natural emerald dealers. I don't work with natural ruby dealers, sapphire dealers, or diamond dealers. We don't share the same markets. We overlap a little bit. I cannibalize their low end sometimes. All you can hope for is tolerance. I'll stop throwing rocks at you, you stop throwing them at me, and we'll both go on and do our business. And I hope we can do that in the lab-grown diamond business, because it is not productive to be fighting. I think we all know that. And finally, keeping secrets. I think I'm a little late on this one. Everybody has a price. And I've told this to many of my competitors when they give you tours of their plants, which you should never do. Can't get them on. Mikimoto kept culturing pearl method a secret for 100 years. And somebody would pay off, or whatever, however it happened. And they went to the Chinese and they totally ruined the cultured pearl industry. You don't let intelligent people into your labs. I get a lot of PhDs in chemistry come to this one work. And I said, you're the last person won my lab. I got enough lifetime employees. Sorry, you're too educated. I want you to take a college graduate. And we compartmentalize everything in our laboratory so nobody outside of the family knows exactly what we're doing. And they can't take it outside, but they make that happen. So finally, I'll leave you with a fable, and many of you may have heard of this. I saw it again on the internet this morning, sitting here. It's called The Story of the Donkey and the Tiger, a moral table I found online. And I don't mean to be derogatory, but I didn't make up this fable, and I didn't make up the names of the animals. Think of the Natural Diamond Council, Rappaport, Sidjo, they're the donkey. The tiger is you and me, the lab-grown diamond industry. One day, the donkey told the tiger, the grass is blue. The tiger replied, well, the grass is green. The discussion became heated, and the two decided to submit the issue to arbitration. So they approached the lion, king of the jungle. And the lion is like the FTC, or your own people's governments. And before reaching the clearing in the forest where the lion was, sitting on his throne, the donkey started shouting, Your Highness, it is true that the grass is blue? And the lion replied, True, the grass is blue. The donkey rushed forward and continued. The tiger disagrees with me and contradicts me and annoys me. Please punish him. The king then declared, the tiger will be punished for 5 years silence. The donkey jumped away for joy and went on his way content and repeating, the grass is blue, the grass is blue. The tiger accepted his punishment, but he asked the lion, Your Majesty, why have you punished me? After all, the grass is green. And the lion replied, in fact, the grass is green. The tiger asked, so why do you punish me? The lion replied, that has nothing to do with the question of whether the grass is blue or green. The punishment is because it is not possible for a brave, intelligent creature like you to waste time arguing with a donkey. And on top of that, come to me and bother me with that question. The worst waste of time is arguing with a fool and fanatic who doesn't care about truth or reality, but only the victory of their beliefs and illusions. Never waste time on discussions that make no sense. There are people, for all the evidence presented to them, do not have the ability to understand, and others who are blinded by ego, hatred, and resentment. And the only thing that they want to do is be right, even if they aren't. When ignorance screams, intelligence shuts up. Your peace and tranquility are worth more than they right.